Okay, tonight's dinner is going to be salmon patties with fried potatoes and onions on the side. Um, I'm a traditional Catholic, so that's why we're doing salmon patties since it is Friday and not Lent. It's sort of a form of penance, if you will. And so the salmon patties are going to be soy-free and gluten-free. I hadn't checked the ingredients on the breadcrumbs, but we use coconut oil when we cook the salmon patties, so quite possibly also dairy-free in that case. Well, no, they have eggs. I think eggs might qualify as dairy. So, they won't have milk in them, but they will have eggs in them. But I'll be using some ingredients that I will show you. There will be eggs. There's an onion that's chopped to go in the salmon patties. There's the canned salmon, which we got at Aldi's. There's the canned spinach, which we got at Walmart. And, let's see, there's breadcrumbs, which we also got at Walmart that are gluten-free. Salt and pepper. I think we usually throw in some garlic salt too. And then the fried potatoes and onions will be just that. Potatoes, cleaned, cut, but skin left on because I like the skin. And then an onion chopped up, not as small as with the salmon patties, but still chopped up, and that'll be put in there too. So let's get cooking. So we start the meal by putting some olive oil in the pan. Here I'm drizzling out of a nice glass bottle that we put it in for easier access at the stove. So I'm trying to coat the bottom well enough so that way when we heat it up, the potatoes and onions will cook right and start cooking immediately. And then this is cutting up the oven. I sped it up so it didn't take too much time, but this is cutting up the oven to put in the pan to make the fried onions and potatoes. So here we're adding potatoes to the onions. The onions have already been cooking, and now we're just layering the potatoes on top of it to get them cooking as well. We cook them at roughly the same time because potatoes actually cook surprisingly quickly. That was part of the purpose of heating the olive oil up in advance. And now we're seasoning it with the salt and the pepper in order to add the flavor to it. We actually also added garlic powder, or no, garlic salt. There's garlic salt, the kind that also has parsley in it, and I added a little extra olive oil over the top in order to help it cook better since it already had it on the bottom. So it adds kind of like that sauteing effect. Only lost 1 or 2 slices of potatoes there. And now this is the video of it cooking. Since the potatoes cooked down a lot, we added 2 more. Okay, this is where I start working on the salmon patties. The first thing I did was add the chopped onions to the bowl. So I'm putting those into the mixing bowl. I put the plate into the sink because I didn't need it anymore. After that, I got the can opener out, and the first thing that I put in was the 2 cans of salmon. So I'm opening up the first can, and then I'll turn to the sink and drain that to get any excess liquid out of the salmon. That's the first can going in, and then I'll just quickly throw that away. And then I went for the second can of salmon. We typically use a ratio of 2 cans of salmon to 1 can of spinach. So that's what I'm working on now in this part of the video is the second can of salmon, and then I'll be throwing that away shortly and moving on to the spinach. Okay, so at this point I've added the salmon, I've added the spinach, and now I'm adding the eggs. I'll add about 4 eggs because I find that that makes for the best cohesiveness. Okay, so the potatoes and the onions are almost done. There's roughly 7 to 8 potatoes cut up in there, and there's about an onion and a half. They're good-sized onions. So, but they cook down. So basically, you pick the onions and potatoes and cook it to taste. So. Okay, this is the initial mix. You can see the eggs in there, the spinach, the salmon. It's all just sort of being mixed up really well right now. I wanted to get it mixed up, and then there's onions at the bottom. Those are now coming up and being mixed in it better too. So next will be the breadcrumbs. I added probably about a half of a cup to a cup of breadcrumbs. You go based off what's in the bowl. And now I'm adding the salt and pepper to it. Now time for the final mix before it goes into the pan. So getting all the breadcrumbs mixed in there really well. I want it well mixed so that they stick together, because between the eggs and the breadcrumbs, that's really what puts together the patty. And now I'm heating up the oil. That's coconut oil that I put in there, several scoops, and balling up the salmon patties, and then I'll flatten it out so it turns into an actual patty and put that into the pan so that they will start cooking. I usually try and get 5 or 6 if I can into the pan to start. There'll be a few rounds of cooking salmon patties, so this is just the first one here. But so far I've gotten 3 pattied up, working on the 4th one, so about 4 or 5 will fit this time, and then there'll be more on the next round. The fried potatoes and onions are nearly done. The salmon patties are browning nicely on the bottom, so time for the first flip. So I'm flipping the salmon patties for a second time to get them a little bit more cooked on the other side, since now they're officially got their first cook on each side. That way, brown them just a little bit more on both sides. Okay, this first batch seems done, so I'm going to go ahead and pull them out and put them on the plate. And then I will continue on the same process with the rest of what I prepared in the bowl. So I should get at least 2, possibly 3 batches out of this, I believe. Okay, this is the second batch of salmon patties I have in the pan. That one over there doesn't look quite as cohesive because right as I was putting it in the pan, some oil popped at me, and in my natural reflex to not get burnt, I dropped it, and so it went splat. So my husband quickly grabbed a spatula and tried to reform it together, so it doesn't look nice and brown like the rest of them, but it'll taste just as good. Okay, the second batch has now been flipped. This one we're browning nicely. That one didn't brown quite as nicely, and that's not even the one that got dropped in there. It's probably from its location in the oil and where it was on the burner, so I turned the pan slightly so that way it can cook better. So this is the second batch. And then over here is that first batch that I already cooked out that's looking delicious. And this is the potatoes and onions. They have browned nicely and look really good. I think that was the timer check on them. So let's have my husband flip them. Okay, and putting the very last batch into the pan to cook. And these are the finished salmon patties and the finished fried onions and potatoes. Okay, this is the final product. You have the potatoes with the onions that are fried on the left and the salmon patties on the right. They brown nicely and look delicious, very crispy on the outside and soft on the inside. So looking forward to digging in.